Mamer Dau, welcome to our today interview. And I just would like to start by asking you some sort of demographic questions. And I just wanted to know what's your name? Can you tell us about yourself, please?
My name is Mamer Dau. I came to Australia in 2008, and I'm in Immigration Detention Center at Yonge in Northern.
Thank you. And how old are you, Mamer?
Probably, I was born in 1982, because most of us, when we were born in South Sudan, we were born when our country was not even independent, and I was born in a place where there was no hospital. So I don't know my date of birth, but the date of birth that I put on my humanitarian application when I came with my mother was the 23rd of August, 1982.
Thank you. And did you say you are located in Western Australia? Where were you before you came to Western Australia?
Well, when I came from 2008, I arrived in Sydney because one of my sponsors who helped me with my mom to send me Australian, they call it application for humanitarians, was in Sydney. His name is James Mading Mabil. So Mading received me with my mother in Sydney, and I've been in Sydney for a couple of months. Then I moved to Perth, WA in 2009.
So which year did you migrate to Australia?
I came on the 17th of October 2008.
And did you migrate here with your mother, your father, or any other relatives?
I came with my mother because I was in refugee camp with my mother. I've been in refugee camp for 16 years in Kenya, in Kakuma refugee camp. So my dad was in South Sudan, but he died while I was in prison in 2015.
That's sad to hear that side of your dad. And at the moment, what is your nationality? Are you an Australian citizen, or are you still holding any status of South Sudanese citizenship?
I'm not an Australian citizen, and that is the reason why I'm in detention. My crime, I'm in detention. I'm not an Australian citizen.
Okay, we're moving on to this residency status in Australia, and this category will have 3 questions. And which visa category did you migrate to Australia? A humanitarian visa, a skills visa, or a partner visa?
I came through humanitarian visa class 202.
Okay. So is your humanitarian visa status still active or cancelled?
It has been cancelled according to the Department of Home Affairs.
So you came to Australia with your mother. Was it in the same visa that you came with, or was it a separate visa?
It's the same visa, and I have even a copy of it now in my property here. So the same visa with my mother, 2 of us.
So do you know the reason as to why your visa was cancelled? And when you migrate to Australia, in that visa, which was a travel document issue under the humanitarian visa category, it mentioned that any migrants who migrated to Australia under this visa category will remain in Australia indefinitely. Why was it cancelled? Were you given any reason?
The reason was because I was convicted for an assault, and the law was passed when I was already been sentenced in December 2014. Then in 2015, there was emergency of the incident happened in Sydney, whereby one of the permanent residency hold people hostage in Sydney, Lidcape. And as a result of that, the Australian government ran up everybody, and then my visa was cancelled. On the basis of that, I've been sentenced for more than 12 months. But okay. I was about to go home, but I was issued a parole, and my parole was that I was an acceptable risk to the community. And then 5 days before I was released from Albany prison, I got a notification from Australian Border Force, and then they bring me here to detention center.
Okay. What about your mother visa? Is your mother an Australian citizen at the moment, or is her visa still very active?
My mother is not an Australian citizen.
So she has been affected by the same problem that has ended your visa being cancelled.
This is what I don't understand, because two of us are in the same visa, and that's the same visa that my mother is using. And even me, I don't even understand if my visa has been cancelled, because it is the same visa with my mother. So it is only the minister or the Department of Home Affairs can explain what that would mean, because it is the same visa that my mother has, that's the same visa I was brought here, and they said it has been cancelled.
Okay, moving on. So we're moving on to the next category of questions, and that is immigration detentions or the prisons. So you said you are in the detentions, and why are you in detention center after being released from the prison?
This is a question that's very important, because while I was going home, because I was released, because I done all my courses, I done my time, and I even talked to my family to come and pick me up. They came and visited me in Albany prison. Then 5 days before that, I was called to the office, and they say by Australian Border Force that your visa has been cancelled. And they even extended my days to be taken from Albany prison to Casuarina prison. And I came to Casuarina prison on the day 9, and then I sleep, spent the night, then I came to Yongo Hill in 2018. And before I was in jail, they issued me a paper to put in the what is called the revocation. And within my revocation, I just wrote a letter to them telling them that I can't go back to South Sudan because my country is at war, and I will be killed even if I arrive in the airport of South Sudan. So, and since then, I never get outside since 2018.
That's unfortunate to hear. And how long have you been detained for?
I've been detained since 2018. Plus my 4 years and 10 months in prison, I'm going to be 10 years behind bars.
So where were you before coming to this detention center where you are at the moment?
I was in jail. I was in Albany prison.
And how long were you in Albany prison for?
I've been in Albany prison because when I was sentenced to 6 years and 10 months for grievous bodily harm to the person who first attacked me, injured me, and I retaliated. And because his injuries were very serious than mine, the police couldn't charge him. So I was sentenced to 6 years and 10 months. And then I was sent to Wake prison, remand center, 2 years remand. Then I went to Casuarina prison. I spent most of my time in Albany prison until August 2018 when I was granted a parole. Then I end up to be in immigration detention center for something that to do because of the new law that was passed in 2015.
When you were charged by the magistrate, did the magistrate mention to you that your visa will be cancelled and you will be taken to the detention center after you serve your prison sentence? And was that part of the sentence?
Well, my lawyer was a witness, and he's called Jonathan A. Davis. He's one of the big barrister. When I was sentenced, the judge never mentioned that I will be taken anywhere because there was no law about that. And that's why even now, I'm not supposed to be in detention because I was sentenced before the new law. So I was sentenced in December 2014, and this new law came to be passed in 2015. So judge never mentioned that. Even my lawyer was shocked. when I told him while I was in younger area, and I told him, look, I'm in detention center. I'm sorry for that because I can't represent you. You have to look for immigration lawyers. So this is what something that I couldn't understand because I was sentenced before the new law, and then I was incorporated to become a victim of something that I couldn't understand.
All right. Under that detention center where you are at the moment, what kind of the government support do you get?
The document support I have, I've done all my courses in prisons and many courses because in prison is a part of correction. And I do thank the Department of Correctional, especially the Minister of Correction for offering all those courses. Those courses, I attend them and I finish them successfully because I want to go back to the community. And within that time, I used to be a tutor in prison. And these are the things that circumstance that allowed the Department of Correction to grant me my parole because I was not a dangerous person to anybody in the community. Only that person I had a problem with. But after my course, I was issued a lot of certificates. One of them was my parole paper. Then the documents that can show all the courses that I've done in prison, rehabilitation courses. I still have them. And even my lawyer, Ahmed Galenista, who was my immigration lawyer, got all those papers with him.
What would you rate your health status and overall health status, including your mental wellness, including your physical health and body health and all that? How do you rate yourself at the moment that you're really being taken care for? Have these detentions affect your overall health, or what can you tell?
Of course, definitely, this place, detention center, not me alone, but a lot of people, but in particular to myself, it has affected me mentally because while I was in prison, prison was been much better than detention center because in prison, there is a time frame. You know how long you're going to be there. But in detention center, you are kept indefinitely until you die. And to make the matter worse, the law that was passed in 2021 in May last year by Scott Morrison, it put everybody because they say if they can't take you back to South Sudan or to your country, then they will keep you indefinite in detention until they die. And it is not something I made up. It is something on the Google, you can Google it. So this was the reason that caused a lot of issue to have mental issue. By myself, I went through a lot of psychological torture. And that's why I even been granted my own room now because the ailments, which is international immigration of aliens, is here at the Department of Circle. They grant me my room because due to my mental issue. And when I was outside, even when I was in jail, I did not have all these things, but my health is now, my mental health is there now, and even with a lot of people, you can see how many people I've seen a lot of people commit suicide here. People cut themselves with the razors, a lot of things. That has been going on a lot in younger area before when I moved silent, before I was taken to Kumu silent. They become hopeless because they can't take you back to your country, then they have to keep you indefinite until you die.
Would you think if the government give you an option today that you will be taken back to South Sudan, do you still think it is safe in South Sudan? And again, do you think the government, the Australian government, has violated the rule of the human rights that granted you a visa? And their interventions, it said that you were indefinitely to remain in Australia, which is your new home country. Do you think there's a violation in that? And do you think if the government say today you will be taken back to South Sudan, do you think it is safe?
Well, it's a good question. I can't go back to South Sudan. Even the minister himself, he was convened by the evidence that I presented, because I have a lot of evidence of even people being massacred. I sent one of the videos, and that video even put me in problem to be put in punishment place. They say you're not supposed to be, because it was a video of how people been slaughtered in South Sudan. And when the minister find that out, they say Mama can't be taken back to South Sudan. And plus a lot of stuff, because on social media I talk about Prophet Mundeng, and president of the country can even kill me in the airport because I talk about that. And plus some of the story, because I'm an author, I wrote 2 books here. So all those things are evident that I present to the minister. And then what they do, they turn around to use it against me by keeping me here indefinitely, because they can't take me. But in truth speaking, I'm the last person to go to South Sudan, because if that regime is still in power, my life will be at risk. And it is not something that I made up. I have a lot of evidence that I presented to the minister, and the minister has considered them. But he made a decision that he has to keep me here until I die.
Okay. Now, with a lot of people who knows you in the community, there is a lot of a great reflections on who Mamer is and what sort of kind of person he is. A lot of people talk about your qualities, being a people person, and that qualities has been known overall in the community. I spoke to too many people who have known you so far, and there's a lot of positivity that is coming out in the community. Do you still withhold all these qualities? And do you think if the Australian government granted you to free you today to go back to the society, what do you think would be the greatest contribution you would ever haven't done before that you wanted to contribute to the Australian society?
Thank you very much for the great question. Before I was granted parole, I had a planning, and the correction department understood. My planning was, if I go released to the community, I want to educate the young people not to go back, not to do any crime, to go back to prison, because I've learned my lesson. And in particular to the kids that are 15 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, juvenile, because that was my plan, because I don't want them to come to follow my past. And that was one of the main reasons that the Department of Correction grant me my my parole. So even now, I'm still having that. On Facebook, on social media, I create my my page. That page is a page that I use to want to educate young people. But because I'm in detention, I can't come in person to talk with them. But it was in my planning, even now in my planning, if I get released, I will go to my community here in Perth, and I'll go to church, and I talk to the kid, and I will explain to them in detail that going to jail, crime, because there is something that I found out in prison. Laws are not taught to people in Australia. The only way you'll understand law better is when you are in prison. And this is something that I came to realize, because the only way a person can understand law in Australia is when you went to university or you want to be a lawyer. This is whereby you understand. But the public of Australia, they don't know anything about the law. And I raised this one even to the minister of the previous government of Colin Barnett, because it is something that I came to find out, that if people come from Australia, like for me, for example, I came from South Sudan. And I did not even come from South Sudan. I came from refugee camp in Kenya. You came to Australia, but you don't even know about Australian law. You will go and know law on the day that you are in prison. And that was part of my planning, even now, that if I get released to the community, I want to educate young children about the consequence of going to prison, and to educate them about this, because these laws are not taught in the school.
Very good indeed. Mamer, you are an author of two books. One book was published by World Publishers, and the other one was published by the African World Book. And both of these organizations are based in Western Australia. And again, if you have also had a lot of experience in both in the prisons and in the detention center. Are you anticipating to publish a more book based on the experience that you have undergone, or what are your next prospect in the future?
Thank you for a great question again, because yes, I published two books. One was published by Board Publishers, and the other one was published by African World Book. But now I'm working on my third book. It's a book called "It's About a Fugitive Girl." I never gave it a title, but it is a fiction. And this fiction, I couldn't finish it. I got more than 10,000 words. But because of my mental issue now, because of this situation I'm in, it refrained me not to finish that fiction. And I won't even write another book about that Kurumus Island, because the reason why I won't write a book about Kurumus Island is a detention center that I compare to Guantanamo Bay. I call it Guantanamo Bay because it's one of the supermax prison I ever seen in Australia. And that will be my fourth book. And I will write so many books because I'm a historian by background. I was a teacher in Kenya, especially in Kakuma refugee camp. I used to teach in primary school. So I will write so many stories apart from the book that I already published.
Good to hear that indeed. Mamer, what can you tell to the current Home Affairs and Immigration Minister in Canberra? As you know, the government has changed. You know, the Liberals Party has been changed to the current Labour Party, which is the ruling party at the moment. So, what can you tell the Prime Minister Albanese or the current affairs Home Affairs Minister and the Migration Minister at the same time?
Thank you very much. What I would like to tell the department, especially to Albanese, and I'm so grateful for the Labour to win, and Albanese to win in particular, because Albanese, I love his policy. Because since the beginning, when I was in Perth there, I worked in the office, one of the office with the Department of Work Safe, before I went to prison. And before then, I used to be a Labour supporter because I believe in Labour policy of fair go, fair go. And the fair go, that's the only thing that I would like the Department of Home Affairs, especially the Minister and the Prime Minister, to look at our life, because you can't kill two birds with one stone. Like for my situation, my mother now, she live alone, she's a disabled, she developed mental issue. And I always worried about, I'm the only child in the family. We come to believe in going to the public because she sing about me all the time. And this is the reason what caused my mother mental issue, because of me being kept in detention. Because if I lost my life, that's the end of my mother too. Now, Australian government is killing two birds with one stone. One bird is myself. The other bird is my mother. And this is the reason why I would like to request the Department of Home Affairs to look at my mother, because my mother, I can't get my mother if I lost my mother. And so do everyone, because mother is important to everybody.
Thank you so much, Mamer. And what can you, the last question, what can you tell the young South Sudanese who are not looking into this very keenly, you know, and you said before that there are so many young people in the detention center where you are and around Australia. What can you tell to the other young people in the community who would be watching this video? And what could you also tell to the parents of the South Sudanese background and African parent who are or African background too?
Thank you very much for a great question. What I can tell South Sudanese and all the migrants who came to Australia as refugees is to obey Australian law and to live by Australian law. And all I can say is that young people all the time, they become victim of law in this country because of cultural difference, because of they are not aware, some of them, they don't even know what they are doing sometimes, they end up, but there are a lot of circumstances that are kind of divide the young people. And that was one of my main planning, because use of drug is one of the main things that I would like to talk about them. Alcohol is another one. All these substances, they are part of the reason that most of young people, they go to prison because of that. So for myself, I got an experience in prison, and that experience, I want to take it to the community to educate the young people, especially in my South Sudanese community. I will start here in Perth, and if I finish in Perth, I will go to everywhere they are, because there is something that I realized. People talk about African gangs, and if you look at it, South Sudanese become a victim of that. But I'm Mamer Dau myself. I can prove them wrong that if there are South Sudanese young children, I will be the monitor to tell them about, you have to do this one, you have to do that, because that's all we want. Even detention is full of South Sudanese in particular, because the previous government, it never give us what is called a fairness, because they can't take, and now some of us, they even risk their life. Because one of my brother called me from Kurmus Island yesterday, and he said, Mama, I won't risk my life to go there, because it's been warned a lot by people on social media that if you come to South Sudan, we're going to kill you. That brother is called Peter Koryom, and by his street name is called Chau. And I told him, Chau, there's nothing I can do about it, my brother, because Australian government, what they do, they should take us to refugee camp. They should take you to Kenya where they brought you, instead to take you to hand you over to your killer, to someone who will execute you. And Australian, they should not breach international law, because they are members of United Nations. But given our situation, Australian government, the previous government, I don't know what the Labour Party will do about it, but under the previous government, definition of refugee has changed, because refugee for them is someone of a color, but refugee is someone that flee the war and go for safety in other countries. And that's the reason why we were brought here. We came legally to live in Australia. Number two, if I done a crime, or if an permanent resident done a crime, and that person is not a terrorist, it's just done a crime like Australian citizen does, then what the point that if it is Australian citizen, he has to come back to the community and done a crime? Because I say this because there are some of my friends that I know, they've been to prison 5 times while I'm in detention here, and they are Australian citizens, but they are not risk to community. But if that person is a permanent resident, is a risk to community. So this character test itself that we are subjecting to, there are a lot of questions that I would like the Labour government to look at it, because this character test, who can pass it? Nobody can pass the character test. Even God himself, he can't pass the character test.
Thank you, Mamer, and it's been a great pleasure talking to you. And as I said, these are important information that have not been known by the general populations, and we will present. We'll make sure we will publish as much information as we could, so that the public is aware on what is happening. Are there any thought of mistreatment and discriminations in the detention centers?
Yes, of course. That's a big issue, because Australian Border Post in particular, because abuse of human rights is very rampant in detention. And how? Why? Because the Department of Home Affairs has been put under national security. Like now, I'm speaking with you in a solitary confinement in a facility called ISWAN. And ISWAN is a basic unit for punishment. So, and if you go everywhere in detention around Australia, it's run as a correction center. But according to the law, they call it detention center. But in reality, it's not detention center, it's even worse than prison. Because being a correction is not supposed to be applied in detention center. But because a lot of human rights has been happening, I've seen myself, and I've been a victim of it. And a lot of detainees, they've been a victim of that. But what can we do? That's where the food is. We have no any choice. So this issue is something that I would request the Department of Home Affairs under the Albanese to look at the powers of the Australian Border Force. Because Australian Border Force, when they take you down the back, they put in a slot, they can keep you there as much as they want, just to psychological torture a person. Sometimes ERT, they came, they grab people, they beat them up. And by the way, nobody gonna know anything. Lawyers are not allowed to come inside. People who came and visit us, our relatives, they are not even allowed to come. And the reason why I even visit, I never been visited since I came here, because of what? The previous government is scared of everybody. When you are visited by your family, they take you to another state, because we came to realize that this policy, it has something to do with separation of family. That's why I even tell people to bring who I was thinking to bring my mother here, not because if I get visited, they will take me to another state. That's why even detention now, the WA, which is where I'm in now, in Younger Hill, most of people who are here, they are from other states. Why? Because they have to take you to the place that you are not going to be visited by your family. Say that you will sign and go back to where you come from. But we South Sudanese, we have no choice. There's a big war now in Upper Nile, in everywhere. And it is something that cannot be denied. You have report a lot of things. So we South Sudanese in particular, we have no choice. We either remain in detention or you risk your life to go and die. And this is the reason why we would like Australian government to look at this one, because if there is a human right in Australia, if there is a human right, and if they believe in non-report obligation, they are supposed to release out to the community, because I'm not a risk to no one. In myself, I was a leader in my community. Okay, if I have the previous government that keep me here for the last 5 years, who has a problem with me in the community? They will never. They only say you only you already fail a character test without explanation, because of Section 36C of Immigration Act, whereby they use my previous conviction as a mean of me failing the character test. Okay, this is not supposed to be, because if I'm being judged by my previous charges, what about Australian citizens who have been to prison for more than 10 times? And to make the matter worse, I went to prison for the first time, of which I should have been given a priority, a second chance, like the way correction office, they grant me a visa because it was my first conviction in Australia. But the previous government denied that right to give me even a second chance. Even some of the people who are, because there is discrimination within immigration system. And I want to open the eye to talk about one of the person. There's one of my friend, he borrowed my book. He done 3 months. He's a British national. This guy, he went to AAT and he got his visa within 3 months. He came to my room and cried. He said, these people that are keeping good people, they speak all about me. They say there's racism. He showed me his criminal history. He got 182 convictions. 182 convictions. He shoot out with police, but the judge granted him his visa AAT, and he's outside now. He cried about me. I told him, my brother, take your stuff and just go in peace, because he said the reason why this Department of Home Affairs, the immigration detention, has a foundation racism. Why would they give me a visa with all this criminal record? 182 convictions, and you, Mamer Dau, you already go to jail for the first time, but because you are in detention here, your crime is just because you are black. I told him, thank you, my brother. Just, you read my book, but what can I do? I'm a good man in my community in WA, but to the Department of Home Affairs who are holding my case, I don't know why.
Thank you so much, Mamer, and it has been a pleasure. And we will call it a day. So we'll talk next time again. Thank you so much for all this information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.